all of a sudden you put them to bed and you're laying there at night and you do a recap and you're like, man, I wish I didn't say that, or I wish I didn't do that. And you have that regret feeling because you want to be a good parent. But unfortunately, being a parent doesn't mean being their friend. You need to be a leader. You need to be a parent, not a friend.
So something that I love that you said, which I don't know really, I don't even know if anyone said it before. But you said now you are responsible, right? You're talking to yourself like now I'm responsible for this little girl for the rest of her life. And not that you need to have the answer to this, but at what point, if most men are created to have that natural feeling, right? Like I think we're pretty much created that when that baby's born, we have that natural feeling. But if it were true and we stuck with it, the world would look different, right? Because how many kids don't have a dad who's engaged in their life? And I wonder, and what do you think? Uh, when and why does a man disconnect from that responsibility, right? At what point does he slowly disconnect from I'm responsible for this person, and not to control their life, but to walk and guide and lead and teach whatever the role of the father is? What do you think? Why do they walk from that role responsibility?
So you're basically asking why some men leave and not take on the responsibility?
Yeah. Yeah, like you had this innate, and I'm not saying you gotta have the answer, but it's just kind of like for us to rap about this. You had this innate feeling of this girl has been placed in my care to take care of, to watch over, to protect. And at some point, I mean, it has to be true that most men have that initial feeling, and then at some point it kind of like goes away because they're not connected to their daughter, they're not connected to their son, they're not taking responsibility. And it's saddening because that's what our world is missing, right? Families falling apart, and a lot of it's because men are not leading in their homes.
I think it's fear based. I think
Mm,
um, I think it's a lot of had to do with fear because I think
yeah,
fear is a big driving factor for most people in life in general. That's why
yeah,
most people stay in their 9 to 5 dead end jobs because they're afraid
yeah.
to
What are
maybe
we afraid of?
failure.
Mm,
If you walk away from the child and you never have to experience that fear of failure if your daughter or your
mm,
son turns out, let's say a shitty person, a shitty individual. Because at least for
right.
me, I obviously want to raise my kids not only to be successful in life and be healthy, but I want them to be good people. So when I'm not around, when I take them to school or they have a sleepover, I don't want to hear that your kid is acting up or you're getting in trouble and not treating people with respect and adults and the
Yeah.
other children. So I think for men, I think it's the fear of failure because if you leave that situation, you don't have to worry about if you're a good father or not. Because most parents, when
Oh,
you
yeah.
lay you lay in bed at night. So, I'm sure you've had this situation where maybe there was a time where you snapped on your kid and you yelled
Yep.
at them
There's
or
been a
whatever it may
few.
be, and all of a sudden you
Yeah.
put them to bed and you're laying there at night and you do a recap and you're like, man, I wish I didn't say that, or I wish I didn't do that, and you have that regret feeling because you want to be a good parent. But unfortunately, being a parent doesn't mean being their friend. You need to be a leader. You need to be a parent, not a friend. And that's a fine line for some parents to follow. And that could create that sense of failure and fear of wanting to be their friend and not have your kid hate you. So I think that's where, I can't speak for them, but if I had to put myself in that situation, I think it has to do with uh, basically being driven by fear of failure.
Yeah. Yeah, so you bring up something really good. It's so funny, this damn word, good. Okay, so you said, am I, a lot of men are asking, am I a good father or not? What's
Exactly.
another word we could replace with good? Because I think the word good is causing us a lot of, good and happy are two freaking words that are causing some issues. And I would say the question isn't, am I a good or bad dad, right? Because then what am I judging that based on? I'm judging that based on, comparing to someone else. I'm just looking at a way that I maybe did something I didn't want to do today. Like I said it this way or that way, but what's another word? Not am I a good dad, but what would you replace that with that is less what's
I mean, competent.
yeah. Yeah, like
You know,
competent or intentional.
well, and I think you hit it on the head. Is as a father and as a man, I think we're bred and initially brought here to learn skills and to be a leader. And so, like for me, if I don't know something, I'm the type of person where I'll go out and find the answer to it, or I'll teach myself. Like for example, the garbage disposal goes out. Okay. I'm the type of person where I'm going to go to Home Depot, I'm going to buy a garbage disposal, and I'm going to replace it myself. Am I a plumber? No. But I'm going to sit there and I'm going to learn. It may take me a couple hours, but I'm going to try and learn that skill of changing it out versus waiting, scheduling an appointment, wait for somebody to come to the house. Like I'm going to learn that skill. I'm going to create that competence. So now I've done it once. So if it goes out again, I know what to do. So it's the same thing whereas disciplining your child. Maybe your first initial thing is to hit your kid, spank them. Like, you know what? Hey, you did something wrong. I'm going to whack you across the ass. Okay. And some kids respond to that and some don't. Like for example, my son, if I would, if I've spanked my son before and he's just like, all right, dad, cool. Like that doesn't work on him. So it's learning a different skill of how to discipline him where it's going to create an effect where, hey, I'm trying to teach you something not to do that. And obviously sometimes, spanking your child isn't always going to work. Every kid's different. Not saying spanking your kid is the way to go or do it. I'm not recommending that, but it happens. But I've learned a different skill in how to discipline my son versus a different skill of how to discipline my daughter. So that's, I think, where for me that word being competent and learning a different skill for and how to do things for your children of what works with your daughter, what works with your son, if it's discipline, if it's schoolwork. I know the way my son learns is different from my daughter, being able to teach them and help them out with their schoolwork. So I think as a father and a leader, you have to be able to adapt and learn different skills. And, it's not a one size fits all as fatherhood, as you know.